Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a tres leche cake, which translated into English means 3 milk cake, and this is what it looks like. It is made with a golden sponge cake. It's a single layer cake, and once the cake is baked, what we're going to do is pour over the top a sweet milk sauce made with sweetened condensed milk, evaporated milk, and whole milk. And the milk sauce is going to be absorbed into the cake, and it makes it soft and moist, but still kind of light and spongy. And then we're going to finish the cake off with some whipped cream, and then I've decorated with a maraschino cherry. You could just do a dusting even of ground cinnamon, or you could use like strawberries or some other berry. So the first thing that you will need to do, I would say somewhere between a half hour to an hour before you start making your cake batter, you need to take 6 large eggs, and a large egg out of the shell is about 50 grams. And we're going to separate them. I like to separate the eggs while they're cold because that way the yolk doesn't tend to break. So you want to put the yolks in one bowl and the whites in another. So if I go by weight, I would say, not every egg is the same, exact same. But so you will get about 190 grams of egg whites and then about 110 grams of egg yolks or thereabouts. So when you're ready to make your batter, you need to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And we're making this in a 9 by 13 inch baking pan, which is 23 by 33 centimeters. I've sprayed my pan with the non-stick spray. You could even butter it if you want to do that. And then for our batter, if you have a stand mixer like I have here, you will need your paddle attachment, or you could use a hand mixer for this. We're going to start with our egg yolks. So, like I said, have them at room temperature. They'll beat up better when they're at room temperature. And to that, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup, which is 150 grams of granulated white sugar. Mine's not exactly white because I'm using organic. So, same thing though. Now, I'm going to beat this on high speed until it's all mixed together and it gets wonderfully light and fluffy and kind of really thick. And that's going to take, like in my stand mixer, 3 to 5 minutes. It might take even longer if you're using a hand mixer, so patience. Okay, we are done. So, you can see here, nice and thick. You can see your light color. That's what you're looking for. And for flavoring, I am adding 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of pure vanilla extract. And then I'm going to add 1/4 cup, 60 milliliters, 60 grams. You can use, I'm using milk. Have your milk at room temperature. If you don't have milk, you could just use water as well. You just want to thin that out just a little, and I'm just going to beat that in. Okay, that looks good. Okay. So we'll put that aside, and then in a separate bowl, I have 1 1/4 cups, which is 165 grams of all-purpose flour, plain flour. To that, I'm adding 1 1/2 teaspoons, 6 grams of baking powder. So we're getting the leavening not only from the beaten egg yolks, and then we're going to beat the egg whites, but also from some baking powder. And then I'm adding 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of I'm using a fine kosher salt or table salt. And you can either sift the ingredients or whisk them. Make sure everything's all mixed together. Okay, So that's done. I'll put that aside. And then, sorry, got to turn around here. Now, normally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually transfer this to a bowl. And then what I would do is wash the bowl. But since we're doing a video, I've got a clean bowl here. And you want your whisk attachment, or again, you could just use a hand mixer. And, sorry, turn my back on you. I have a half a teaspoon, which is 2 grams of cream of tartar. I use cream of tartar when I'm beating my egg whites because it stabilizes, which then kind of says you can't overbeat them. You can find cream of tartar on the spice aisle of your grocery store. Some people say in some countries you can't find it. Then you could just use lemon juice or vinegar, a little vinegar even. So I'm going to put that in there along with, sorry about that, I keep turning my back on you, my egg whites, which are again at room temperature. And then I'm just going to whisk that to mix the cream of tartar into my whites. And then I'm going to beat this on medium-low speed until we get soft peaks. It's going to take a little while. Okay. Okay, so now, one visual clue, so you don't have to keep lifting the mixer and checking, that your egg whites are at the soft peaks, is if your whisk will start to leave tracks in the egg whites, beaten egg whites. So, it's hard to see, but we're at just soft, barely soft peaks. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to have the mixer on high speed, and I'm going to gradually beat in or add 1/4 cup, 50 grams of granulated white sugar. You don't want a gritty meringue. You can, essentially, we're making a meringue. You want it to be nice and stiff and glossy peaks. And if you put a little between your fingers, it'll feel nice and smooth. That's why we're adding the gradually, and we'll beat the sugar in because we don't want that, we want that sugar to completely dissolve. No grittiness. So I'm going to add a bit, beat it in, and then add more and more. Okay, we are done. So what I like to do is just take my whisk, give it a good stir, and then slowly raise, and that I want a little bit of a droop. So that's our whites. So now I have put my egg yolk batter in a large bowl. I like a wide bowl, I find, because we're going to be folding in the flour and then the whites. So if you have, I mean, you can do it in your mixer bowl, but I prefer a wide one. It just makes it easier. So you will need, I'm using a strainer or a sifter. We're going to first sift our flour mixture, probably in 3 additions. Do it gradually here. And then I'm using my spatula. You could use a wire whisk. Hope you can see what I'm doing here. And so we're just going to fold it in. Make sure you scrape the sides because it does get, flour does tend to stick. So once you've got most of it folded in, add a little more, and then the rest. I'm just going to take a scraper on the sides of my bowl, scrape that down. Okay, now we're going to fold in our whites. Again, just going to put a little in to lighten this up. Especially when you're adding your whites, you don't, I mean, they're going to deflate a little when you mix them in, but the thing is we don't want to overmix and really deflate those whites. Just up and over, scrape around the edges. And then add a little more, and then a little more. I'm doing this, like with the flour, in 3 additions. Okay. You want to make sure you get to the bottom of the bowl, so everything gets mixed together thoroughly. Some people make, you know, our 3 milk cake with a butter cake, which you can do. You'll find recipes for that. I like a sponge cake because, as the name implies, it's spongy and will really absorb our milk. So, you know, we're going to use a lot of milk, but it's amazing how this cake will absorb it all, and the cake will be soft and moist, but it won't be like mushy or anything. It's just wonderful. Okay, it's almost there. If you're new to making a sponge, you know, this is maybe the part that's a little, don't worry about it. Because, you know, when the cake comes out of the oven, it is going to deflate a little as it cools. So if it doesn't rise, you know, when you're new at it, it doesn't rise quite as much, you know, it's fine. No one will know. Okay, so now, make sure, let's pour that in. This recipe is basically my American sponge cake recipe that I bake in a tube pan. I mean, I altered it a little, but it's basically that. So if you want, you know, you like this kind of cake, you can go to joybaking.com, our website, or our YouTube channel, and American sponge cake, and you'll find the recipe and video if you want to try that. So now I'm just using an offset spatula. You could use the back of a spoon just to spread it out. And this cake is not going to take very long to bake, which is nice because it's in a single layer. My type of cake. Those corners. Okay, looks good. Whenever I make a sponge, what I like to do is just kind of tap it on the counter, get rid of any air bubbles. So now, everyone's oven a little different, but I'm going to say about 20 to 25 minutes. It will rise, turn a beautiful golden brown. It will start to pull away from the sides of the pan, and a toothpick inserted into the center will come out clean. So our sponge cake is done. So you want to put it on a wire rack. See, beautiful golden brown starting to come away from the sides of the pan. And when I put a toothpick into the center, came out clean. So now what I'm going to do is just let it cool completely in the pan on the wire rack. It'll probably, sink a little. It's perfectly normal, so don't panic. So that's what we're going to do, and then when we come back, we will make our sweet milk sauce. So now, our cake has cooled down to room temperature. Just feel it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to poke holes all over the top of the cake so that when we pour the milk sauce, it'll go absorb down in. So I'm just using a fork. You could use like a skewer. And what you want to do is lots of holes. And go down almost to the bottom of the cake. Just go all the way along. Lots and lots. Okay, lots of holes. So there we have it. Don't worry about the look of that because remember, we're going to cover it with whipped cream. So for our 3 milk sauce, I've got a large measuring cup or some kind of container. The first is 1 cup, 240 milliliters, 240 grams. I'm using whole milk, full fat. If you really want to get carried away, some recipes I've noticed use heavy whipping cream. You want that, you can go for it. I think this is just rich enough, and for our other 2, we're adding evaporated milk and we're adding sweetened condensed milk. The difference between the 2, they're both milk that's been cooked to reduce some of the water. The difference between evaporated and the sweetened condensed milk is sweetened condensed milk has sugar. Now, unfortunately, when you have ounces, you can have fluid ounces and you can have weight ounces. And I don't know why, but the evaporated milk, they actually do it in fluid ounces, give you that on the label, and the sweetened condensed milk, they do it in weight. So what you'll need is 1 12-ounce can, which is 355 milliliters of evaporated milk. Just pour that right in there. And 1 14-ounce can. By weight, that's 396 grams. I actually poured when I was testing this, poured this into a measuring cup, and that will give you 280 milliliters of sweetened condensed milk. I think they need to coordinate that because it can drive you crazy. So this is, you know what, this is, don't worry, you think, oh man, that's a lot of liquid. A sponge cake can absorb an amazing amount of liquid, and it just makes it soft and moist. It doesn't make it mushy. Trust me on that, because you'll want to make this cake. I'm going to put that in there. And then for flavoring, I'm adding 1.5 teaspoons, 6 grams of pure vanilla extract. Some people, if you want alcohol, you could add, some rum, 1-2 tablespoons. I've seen recipes with brandy. I'm just making vanilla. Milk, it's got that milky flavor to the cake, which I think vanilla, milk, perfect. So just whisk that, because especially that sweetened condensed milk, it's very thick and yummy. And then we're going to slowly pour this over our cake. We'll pour some, let it absorb in, and then keep pouring. And that's why we have all the holes, so it'll help it be absorbed. Okay, I think that's good, hopefully. So now, I'm just going to start at one end and pour it over. Okay, finish that up. Don't worry if some is collecting along the sides and bottom of the pan, because we are going to refrigerate this, and over time that'll all be absorbed into the cake and make it wonderfully soft and moist. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cover it and put it into the refrigerator. Now, I actually prefer to leave this overnight in the refrigerator. I think that gives it enough time to be fully absorbed and to flavor it and soften the texture. But I have, on occasions, 4 to 6 hours in the fridge. Still really good if you can't wait. So that's what I'm going to do. And then when we come back, we will cover it with our whipped cream. So we are now ready to make our whipped cream. So if you have a stand mixer, you need your whisk attachment. You could use a hand mixer, or really you could use just a large bowl and a wire whisk. So you will need 1.5 cups, which is 360 milliliters or grams of cold, heavy whipping cream. And that is cream with the 35 to 40% butterfat content, which just means that when I beat it, it will hold stiff peaks. Now I'm going to sweeten it with, you can really make your whipping cream as sweet or as not sweet, whatever you want. I usually add, for this amount of cream, I usually add between, say, 3 to 4 tablespoons of granulated white sugar. So, you know, maybe 40 to 50 grams. But really, it's up to you. If you only want like a tablespoon, that's perfectly fine. And then I like to flavor it with a little bit of vanilla extract. So I'm just using 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams. And now I'm going to beat this on medium-high speed until it holds stiff peaks. Now, when you beat, especially when you beat cream with a stand mixer, don't walk away, because it can go from a liquid to butter in no time. Okay, that looks good. A lot of times too, when I'm using my stand mixer to whip my cream, I don't beat it all the way, because I don't want to overbeat it. And sometimes I just finish off with my wire whisk. Now, sometimes we do over whip it. There is a fix. Yeah, that's what I want, like that. There is a fix for that. Just add a little more cold, heavy cream right in here, and then just beat it by hand with your whisk, and that will fix that. So, yeah, that looks good. And also, I like to taste it just to make sure. That's good, because if you maybe want a little more sugar, a little more vanilla, you could just whisk it in. And plus, you know, we got to do a taste test. We're allowed to do that. So, I should say, I let this sit about 4 hours in the fridge. Like I said, a lot of times if I'm not doing a video, I let it sit overnight. But today, I have 4 hours. There was liquid in here when I first put it in. It's totally absorbed into the cake. You don't have to put whipped cream on it, like I said, if you just want to serve it the way it is. Or, you know, sometimes you could just serve the cream on the side, and then people could put a dollop or not. But today I'm going to put it all on there. This is a great casual dessert. I mean, it feeds a lot of people. Depending on the size of your pieces, I'd say 18 up to, say, 24 people. So then I'm just using, you can use back of a spoon, offset spatula, spread that out. But I mean, it might sound like overkill, whipped cream when we've already used 3 milk, but it isn't. It just finishes it off. And you know what? This isn't overly sweet. It's not even, you think it would be really rich tasting. It's not. It's got this milky flavor, a little sweet in it. Oh, It's wonderful. And it lasts. You can store this, 3 up to 5 days in the fridge. Okay. You can even use less cream if you want, but hey, we're going all out today. Why not? So, there we have it. There's our cake. Now, you could frost it with, well, I'm going to garnish it, I should say, with each, I just do each slice with the maraschino cherry. I like the ones still with the stems. And then I just put them on some paper towel, because when you buy them, they're usually a little jar with liquid. So we want to get rid of all that liquid, because otherwise that's going to dye our cream. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if we're going for a really good presentation. And I don't put the cherries on. I wouldn't, if you were going to make this and then put it back in the fridge, not serve it right away, I wouldn't put my cherries on there. I would just right before you serve. You could, now I said you use strawberries, cut up some strawberries or other fresh berries would be very good. Sometimes you could just dust the top with some ground cinnamon. That would be nice. So I'm just going to cut this. See if I can get that first slice is always the hardest one. But, oh, well, almost got it. There. The next slice would be better, but there, see, there we have it. We have the cake on the bottom, and you can see it's not like really soggy, it's just moist, and then we have the whipped cream on top, and then I'll put my cherry. You know what? I just think that's so cute. And let's try some. Oh. I don't think one bite was enough. I'll just take another one just to make sure. That is. It's one of my favorite cakes. It is wonderfully moist, soft. It's not soggy at all. And it has that, it's sweet, but not overly sweet. Kind of that rich and creamy, little bit of vanilla flavor. And it's just, it's not a hard cake as you saw to make. I'll just keep eating it. And like I said, it lasts, I would say, between 3 and 5 days. I did, when I was testing this, I did freeze it. And I was surprised that it did freeze very well. The thing is, though, when you take it out of the freezer, put it into your refrigerator to defrost, and then I would say once you take it out of the freezer and put it into the refrigerator, let it sit in the fridge for at least, I'd say, 24 hours, and that way the texture will improve. And then I found it's almost as good as when you first make it. So you must make this cake, and until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.